Okay, so now we're going to move on to the mouth. And by the mouth, I primarily mean the lips, okay? So we will do the open mouth probably in a separate lesson, depending on how we go time-wise, but we'll see how that goes. For now, we're just going to concentrate on the structure of the lips. So let's zoom in here. So we obviously have an upper lip and a lower lip. So let's draw some lips here for you. Now you may say these are pretty feminine looking lips, and I would probably have to agree with you, but that's not really going to make a difference. I can make these lips a bit more manly, a bit more manly, pretty easily. But for now, we'll just draw these in here. And let's just move these a bit closer together so we're not wasting space. Alright, the structure of the lips now. So the lower lip is easy. The lower lip is pretty much two ovals, or in the side-on view, one oval. Okay, pretty easy. The upper lip is a bit more complicated. Once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. So what we have is 4 ovals like this. Like so. And even on the side here, we'll probably have 2, but I guess we could probably get away with 1. Now, this is not how we would simplify the shape. I'm just breaking it down so that you can see the structure of it. When I'm drawing it, I would start with the line of the mouth, like so. And then from there, I would go bottom lip, because it's the easiest one to do. Then the top lip, what you have to remember is because it curves around the face, you have this section here is essentially facing the front, whereas these sections here are slanting backwards towards the ear. Okay, now this is not entirely accurate because this center section, the middle part here, is pushed further in. Okay, so what you have is you have this section here is facing that way there slightly, and this section is facing that way slightly. And again, this is super important when you want to learn how to shade the face. For just drawing line work, it's not as important, but if you understand the forms, you will be able to represent them more realistically. So this section here is facing this way, this section here is facing this way, and this fades off down into the back like that. Okay? Alright, pretty easy so far. I'll just move that up there. So the next thing you have to remember is, of course, the mouth moves across the face. So these parts here are going to be further back in space than this part, okay? Which means when you start to turn it, say like I'm doing here, the face is turning that way, this part is going to start to go back and you're not going to be able to see it anymore. So we start to get this look here, okay? Now that's very, very important, okay? Because if you are, a rookie mistake would be to draw a face on 45-degree angle like this, but keep the mouth essentially the same. Just shorten this bit. And as you can see, this doesn't actually look bad. This looks alright. This looks like it's passable, you know, but that is essentially a front-on mouth, okay? If I was to draw a really side-on nose like this, you can see that that starts to look not quite right, especially if I was to put the face shape in here, and you can really see now that it's not making sense, okay? So keep that in mind. You have to hide that as the face rotates. You have to hide that bit back there behind everything else. So the lips are primarily a nice simple shape, okay? Pretty easy to do. The trickiness comes into it when we start moving the mouth with talking, but not just talking, with facial expressions like smiling and frowning, okay? And the reason being is because the mouth moves from the corners here. It is essentially like the corners are being pulled. So if I was to draw a happy face, so this would be the line for a I see what I've done. Okay, this would be the line for a normal mouth, okay? And then for a happy mouth, we're going to get this slightly upturned on the corners. Now, what happens here is the lips start stretching from the closest part that's being pulled, okay? So what we don't have is the thickness of the mouth staying the same like this. Instead, what we have, and I'll do it with the bottom lip, is it starts to thin out. So we get this stretched kind of look, okay? So if I draw get a somewhat smiley face from the side, really get that stretched kind of look, as opposed to oops, let's undo that. Much more volume in the lips here. You can see this is a lot thicker than over here. Okay, so it stretches it, it pulls on that corner and stretches it, whether it's a smile or a frown. Okay, but it's important to make sure that the volume of the lips gets smaller and more stretched as it moves further out. Now when we open the mouth, what we have is this, and I wasn't going to talk about this in this lesson. Probably going to leave it for another lesson. No, we'll talk. We might as well. We're here. We'll talk about it now. So this is slightly off topic, but we'll get back to it. So going back to the structure of the head. We have our jaw here like this. Now the jaw moves independently from the head, as we've said before. The importance of this is when you talk, this happens. Okay, it rotates from this point here, that where it's joined to the head, rotates from here. So what we get is we get two things. First, the upper lip stays where it is. Okay, you can, in like when people are getting angry and stuff like that, you can lift the upper lip up a little bit, but the teeth will always stay where they are. Okay, just chuck some teeth in here. The upper teeth will not move, okay, because the head is connected to the neck. Okay, and when you talk, the jaw lowers down here. So the first thing is the upper lip and teeth stay where it is. The second thing is, as the jaw moves, it moves in an arc. Okay, it does not move straight down like this. It's very important to drawing a face that is in a 45, or an angle that's not front on, that is talking, or yelling or screaming or anything like that. Because if you draw a side on head and we open his mouth and we do it like this, you can see we run into some big problems there. But if we take that same head and we remember that the jaw opens on that curve, on that arc, you can see that this line here is the same length as that line there, but the bottom of the jaw is much higher up because of that arc. Okay, and you can see this head here looks way too long, so keep that in mind. So the reason this is important for drawing the mouth, other than those points I just brought up, is what it does to the lips. So I'm just going to leave that there. So as the mouth opens, okay. So as the mouth opens, the corners of the lips here, corners of the mouth, are going to get stretched down. So let's draw an open mouth here. And this is a pretty wide open mouth. Okay, and of course we've got our inside of our mouth here, which again we'll get into a bit later, but for now this is essentially what we're looking at. So our bottom lip here, because it's attached to the jaw, it's really gonna start to stretch. Because this upper lip doesn't move as much, the corners aren't going to go down as far. Instead, what's going to happen is the lower lip will stretch a bit more. The corners do need to drop, okay? I'm certainly not saying keep the corners up here and then, you know, do one of these mouths, okay? It's not what I'm saying. They need to drop, but you need to remember that the bottom part, the skin is stretching. So the bottom part, the part that moves, is going to get a bit more stretched than the part that doesn't move, okay? So the corners are not going to go all the way down. All right. So when you're drawing that, make sure you get a little bit of stretch in the top lip, but a lot of stretch in the bottom lip, okay? All right, and again, we'll do some different expressions later when we're drawing the heads in from different angles, but for now I think we'll leave this one here.